Hello and welcome. Throughout the countless worlds of Dungeons and Dragons, from the war-torn lands of Serene to the dragon-marked continents of Eberron, whispers persist of practitioners who walk paths neither wholly arcane nor divine. They are called by many names across many cultures, but tonight you will come to understand them as they truly are. Witches, the serene keepers of ancient pacts, the patient cultivators of spirit bonds, the guardians of knowledge too dangerous for common scholarship. These are not mere conjurers or spell slingers. They are bridges between worlds, intermediaries who commune with forces that existed before gods claimed their thrones, and will endure long after mortal kingdoms crumble to dust. The question that has puzzled scholars for millennia is deceptively simple. What precisely is a witch? To answer this, you must first understand what a witch is not. A witch is not a wizard, despite both wielding arcane power. The wizard approaches magic as a science, studying formulae and theory, transcribing spells into spellbooks through painstaking intellectual labor. The wizard commands the weave through force of will and depth of knowledge, bending reality to conform to memorized patterns. A witch operates from entirely different principles. Where the wizard commands, the witch requests. Where the wizard studies, the witch communes. Neither is a witch, simply a sorcerer wearing a different name. Sorcerers carry magic in their blood, born with power flowing through their veins as a consequence of draconic ancestry, wild magic exposure, or some other accident of birth. Their magic is instinctive, natural, requiring no external source, because the source dwells within. A witch's power, however, comes from relationship. It flows from bonds carefully forged with entities beyond mortal understanding, maintained through respect, offerings, and mutual benefit. The distinction between witch and warlock proves more subtle and has confused even learned sages. Both forge pacts with otherworldly beings. Both draw power from external patrons. The difference, based on what we understand from various traditions, lies in the nature of the relationship itself. A warlock strikes a bargain, a transaction with defined terms. The warlock offers service, devotion, or perhaps their very soul in exchange for immediate magical capability. The pact is binding, often permanent, and the power flows primarily in one direction, from patron to supplicant. A witch, by contrast, appears to cultivate relationships plural, not singular. She maintains connections with many spirits, entities, and forces simultaneously. These relationships require ongoing maintenance, appropriate offerings, and deep understanding. The witch serves not one master, but many allies, and her magic grows through patient nurturing rather than sudden transaction. Hags present yet another distinction that requires your careful attention. Hags are not human practitioners, who learned witchcraft. They are fey creatures, monstrous beings of inherent magical nature. A hag is born a hag, possessing natural abilities that require no study or spiritual communion. They are warped reflections of civilization, embodiments of nature at its most repugnant and cruel. While hags often form covens and practice magic that superficially resembles witchcraft, they are fundamentally different creatures. A human might become a witch through dedication and training. No human becomes a hag through any natural process, though dark legends speak of corrupted practitioners who underwent terrible transformations. The practice of witchcraft, as it developed across the multiverse, appears to rest upon a singular foundation: spirit binding and communion. This art predates organized civilization, reaching back to times when humanity huddled in caves and forests, learning to survive in a world dominated by dragons and giants. Those early humans who possessed certain sensitivities, who could perceive the invisible forces flowing through nature, became the first witches. This interpretation draws from how witch traditions describe their origins, though the actual historical details remain lost to time. What we can say with certainty is that witches learned to speak with the spirits dwelling in ancient trees, in mountain springs, in the wind itself. They discovered that these spirits, when approached with proper respect and appropriate offerings, would share their power and knowledge. Spirit binding, as practiced by witches, is not enslavement. This distinction matters profoundly. For those who attempt to command spirits through force inevitably meet terrible fates. A witch approaches a spirit as one might approach a potential friend or ally, offering something of value and requesting aid in return. The spirit maintains its autonomy, its ability to refuse, its essential nature. The bond formed is consensual, mutually beneficial, and requires ongoing maintenance. A witch who neglects her spirit allies will find her power diminishing as those spirits withdraw their cooperation. A witch who betrays a spirit's trust may face consequences ranging from loss of power to active retaliation. The types of spirits that witches commune with vary tremendously. Nature spirits dwell in forests, rivers, mountains, and other geographic features. These spirits tend to be ancient, slow to anger, but implacable once roused. They value stability, proper respect for the natural world, and maintenance of ecological balance. A witch who bonds with forest spirits might gain power over plants and animals, the ability to navigate wilderness unerringly, or knowledge of herbal lore. Elemental spirits embody raw forces such as fire, water, air, and earth. These spirits are more volatile than nature spirits, quicker to respond, but also quicker to take offense. They grant power over their respective elements, allowing a witch to call storms, ignite fires with a thought, or shape stone like clay. Ancestral spirits, the shades of the dead who linger in the mortal world, form bonds with some witches. These spirits carry knowledge from past ages, secrets that died with them, and perspectives spanning decades or centuries. They tend to be protective of their descendants and communities, willing to aid those who honor their memory and maintain proper funeral rites. Fae spirits from the Feywild represent another category entirely. These beings are capricious, beautiful, terrible, and utterly alien in their thinking. A witch who bonds with Fae spirits must possess exceptional wisdom and caution, for the Fae delight in tricks and view mortal life as fleeting and therefore expendable. Yet the power they offer can be tremendous, granting abilities that defy natural law entirely. In the land of Rashaman, located in the cold northeastern reaches of Faerun, which traditions achieved their highest and most organized expression. The Wicklaran, meaning wise old women, serve as spiritual leaders, judges, rulers, and warriors of the Rashami people. The formal term for a member of this organization is Hathrin, meaning learned sister. Every female spellcaster in Rashaman, whether her magic flows from arcane study or divine connection, belongs to the Wicklaran. They commune with the spirits of the land, powerful entities dwelling in the deep forests and ancient places. The sacred forest of Erlingwood serves as their primary sanctuary, a place forbidden to all non-Wicklaran on pain of death. Within Erlingwood, the witches brew Rashami firewine, bind hostile spirits, and maintain vigilance over Thayan forces that constantly threaten their borders. The Wicklaran demonstrate how witch traditions can become central to an entire culture's identity and survival. They are not outcasts or marginalized practitioners forced to hide their abilities. They are respected, feared, and obeyed without question. A Hathrin's word is law throughout Rashaman, and to disobey carries a death sentence. This authority stems not from mere political power, but from the essential role the witches play. They maintain the pacts that keep the land fertile and the spirits peaceful. They defend against external threats, both mundane and supernatural. They preserve knowledge spanning centuries, ensuring that each generation learns from those who came before. Yet not all Rashami witches remain true to these protective traditions. The Durthan represent a corrupted splinter faction, witches who focus on spirits of destruction and vengeance rather than balance and protection. These dark practitioners dream of conquest, of attacking Thay and forcing tribute from neighboring lands. They welcome non-humans into their ranks, even hags, breaking with traditional Wicklaran practices. The Durthan demonstrate the ever-present danger of corruption that faces all who traffic with powerful spirits. The same abilities used for protection can be turned toward domination. The same communion that brings wisdom can bring madness if one opens oneself to malevolent entities. In the domain of Barovia, trapped within the demiplane of dread, witches of a different sort practice their craft. The Barovian witches, both women and men, forge pacts not with nature spirits or fae, but with Strahd von Zarovich himself and the dark powers of Ravenloft. These practitioners, it could be inferred from their behavior and methods, trade their sanity and souls for magic and longevity, becoming twisted servants of Barovia's vampire lord. They represent witchcraft at its most corrupted, showing what happens when the fundamental principle of balanced relationship is abandoned in favor of desperate bargaining with evil powers. Barovian witches serve as cautionary examples, reminders that the path of the witch requires wisdom, discretion, and unwavering ethical foundation. Far across the multiverse, in the continent of Corvair on the world of Eberron, a different manifestation of witch power emerged. The legendary Sorakel, described as both a witch of tremendous power and one of the strongest wizards in that entire world, gave birth to 3 daughters who would reshape nations. The daughters of Sorakel, Soracatra, Soramul, and Soraterza are actually hags rather than human witches, each possessing abilities that make them among the most powerful individuals in Corvair. Soracatra, called the mouth of the 3 sisters, is a green hag of extraordinary cunning, who serves as the mastermind behind their nation of Drome. Soramul the Fist is an Annie's hag of terrible strength. Soraterza, a dusk hag unique to Eberron, possesses precognitive abilities so powerful that she is led by her own visions, becoming a de facto leader of the triumvirate through her prophetic utterances. The daughters of Sorakel united the monstrous races of Western Corvair, creating the nation of Drome, where creatures traditionally viewed as evil or monstrous could live openly. They demonstrate the political power that organized practitioners can wield when directed toward specific goals. Though they are hags rather than human witches, their mother Sorakel was human, and the legacy she passed to her daughters shows how magical knowledge can transcend species boundaries and reshape the political landscape of entire continents. Throughout the middle centuries of Dale reckoning in Faerun, witch traditions faced persecution that nearly destroyed millennia of accumulated knowledge. As organized religions gained prominence and centralized kingdoms extended their control, those who practiced the old ways of spirit communion found themselves increasingly marginalized. Priests declared that magic should flow only through approved divine channels, that communion with spirits was trafficking with demons. Wizards' guilds, jealous of their own power and prestige, claimed that only structured arcane study represented legitimate magical practice. Kings and nobles, fearful of powers they could not control or tax, began persecuting those who maintained the ancient traditions. The persecution that swept through various regions drove practitioners into hiding or killed them outright. Covens that had openly maintained sacred groves for centuries now met in secret, concealing their gatherings under cover of darkness. Knowledge passed down through unbroken chains, stretching to time immemorial, was lost, as entire lineages were extinguished. Sanctuaries were burned, grimoires destroyed, sacred artifacts scattered or hidden so thoroughly their locations were forgotten. The persecution stemmed partly from genuine fear, partly from political calculation, and partly from tragic misunderstanding. Some witches had indeed been corrupted, turning their abilities toward malevolence. But the persecutors rarely distinguished between corrupted practitioners and those who maintained protective traditions. Yet the traditions persisted because they could not be destroyed through violence or legislation. The spirits remained, continuing their eternal existence regardless of human approval. The cycles of moon and season turned without requiring permission. The gateways between worlds endured, waiting for those who remembered proper approach. Witches adapted, developing methods of concealment. They learned to mask their true nature behind mundane appearances, posing as herbalists, midwives, or healers, while keeping deeper mysteries secret. They established hidden signs and signals, ways of recognizing fellow practitioners without revealing themselves to hostile observers. They encoded their knowledge in symbols and songs, in recipes and folk tales, ensuring that even if written records were destroyed, core wisdom would survive in forms persecutors would overlook. Based on what we understand from various witch traditions, certain practitioners took upon themselves the specific responsibility of preserving the most dangerous and significant knowledge. These dedicated individuals became living repositories of lore too perilous to commit to writing, maintainers of seals and wards that kept certain entities bound, guardians of gateways that must never be opened. Such practitioners might spend their entire lives watching over specific locations where the barriers between worlds grew thin, performing the same protective rituals every dawn and dusk without fail, knowing that a single lapse could unleash catastrophe. Others guarded conceptual gateways, ensuring certain names remained unspoken, certain rituals incomplete, certain truths hidden from those who would misuse them. The distinction between witch magic and other forms of spellcasting becomes clearest when examining methodology. A wizard learning the fireball spell memorizes precise hand gestures, the exact phrasing of verbal components, and the specific materials required. She studies the mathematical relationships underlying the manipulation of the weave, understanding fire as energy released through controlled destabilization of magical fields. When she casts the spell, she is essentially performing a careful calculation, weaving the weave into a specific pattern that produces the desired effect. A witch achieving the same result approaches the task entirely differently. She calls upon fire spirits with whom she has established relationships, offering them something they desire, persuading them to manifest briefly in the physical world. The fire she summons, this interpretation suggests, might carry personality and preference, potentially burning with selectivity if such serves her purpose, and she has negotiated the terms properly with the spirits involved. This relational approach grants witches certain advantages unavailable to other casters. They can achieve effects that would require wizards to research entirely new spells, simply by approaching appropriate spirits and forming suitable arrangements. They can work magic in areas where the weave has been damaged or suppressed. Because their power flows from spirits rather than directly from the weave, they can maintain long-term magical effects without continuous concentration, because the spirits they have petitioned continue the work independently. However, this approach also carries significant limitations and risks. A witch's power depends upon maintaining good relationships. Offend a powerful spirit, and abilities relied upon for decades may vanish. Break a pact, even inadvertently, and consequences can be devastating. Section 2. The Witch Queens, Legends of Power Beyond Mortal Reckoning. Among all the practitioners of witchcraft who have walked the countless worlds of the multiverse, one name stands above all others, whispered with equal measures of awe and terror across planes of existence. Tasha, also known as Natasha the Dark, Igwilv the Witch Queen, and Zybelna the Archfey of Prismeer, represents the pinnacle of what a mortal witch can achieve, a living testament to the heights of power accessible through patient cultivation of otherworldly relationships and ruthless ambition tempered by centuries of experience. Her story begins on the world of Oerth, where a young girl with raven-black hair caught the attention of perhaps the only being in all the multiverse who could recognize and nurture such extraordinary potential. Baba Yaga, called the mother of all witches, is a being whose very existence defies easy categorization. She is described as the grandmother of witches and one of the most powerful female mages to ever live, her age measured not in centuries, but in eons. Her influence felt across every plane and every world where witch traditions take root. When Baba Yaga adopted the young Natasha, the circumstances of this adoption remain shrouded in mystery. What we do know is that Baba Yaga recognized raw potential, a spark of ambition and ability that, properly nurtured, could reshape the fundamental nature of magical practice itself. The mother of all witches raised Natasha alongside her own daughters, the hags Endelin, Bavlorna, and Skabatha, teaching her adopted daughter harsh lessons that would serve Natasha through countless lifetimes of magical pursuit. The lessons of Baba Yaga were not gentle. Natasha grew up in the Feywild within the dancing hut, in the company of creatures fundamentally alien to human nature, learning to navigate the treacherous politics of beings who measured time in centuries and viewed mortal life as fleeting and expendable. She studied under Baba Yaga herself, absorbing knowledge of planar travel, spirit binding, and the delicate art of maintaining relationships with entities that could unmake her with a thought. Baba Yaga taught Natasha how to summon demons at the age of 10, an extraordinarily young age to begin such dangerous study. From her hag sisters, Natasha learned cunning and patience, though she also developed resentment toward them and they toward her. These early lessons shaped the woman who would become Igwilv, forging a practitioner capable of feats that would earn her comparison to demon lords themselves. Baba Yaga herself warrants deeper examination, for understanding the teacher illuminates much about the student. The mother of all witches travels the plains in her famous dancing hut, a structure that appears from outside as a small thatched cottage of warped boards, rusty nails, and decaying thatch. When approached, the hut rises up on gigantic chicken legs that sprout from its foundation, capable of walking across terrain or dancing in place as Baba Yaga wills. The chicken legs themselves carry deep symbolic significance, possibly referencing ancient traditions, or perhaps stemming from the practice of building funeral huts on wooden stilts, though the true origins remain debated among scholars. The interior of Baba Yaga's dancing hut is far larger than its exterior suggests, containing countless rooms and chambers that shift and rearrange according to her whim. The hut serves as mobile fortress, laboratory, library, and gateway, capable of traveling not merely across geographical distance, but between planes of existence entirely. Baba Yaga has visited countless worlds, appearing in the folklore of hundreds of cultures, always maintaining her essential nature as the crone of terrible wisdom and inscrutable motives. She helps some who seek her aid and devours others, with no apparent pattern to her choices, save her own unknowable purposes. Young Natasha proved an exceptional student, quickly mastering the fundamentals of witchcraft and pushing beyond into territories few had explored. While still in her youth, Natasha invented the spell known as Tasha's hideous laughter, a working that assaults the mind itself, forcing targets into fits of uncontrollable mirth that leave them helpless before their enemies. This spell alone would have earned her a place in magical history, demonstrating an intuitive grasp of mind-affecting magic that typically requires decades of study to achieve. But Natasha was only beginning. As she matured, Natasha became known as Tasha, and joined the company of 7, serving as apprentice to the archmage Zagig Irajern. This apprenticeship proved pivotal in her development, for Zagig possessed knowledge and resources far beyond what even Baba Yaga had shared. In a pinnacle of their achievement together, Tasha and Zagig succeeded in summoning and binding the demon Lord Frazerblu, Prince of Deception, whom they imprisoned beneath Castle Greyhawk. The pair were aided in this plot by several rivals of Frazerblu, other demon lords who hated him for his habit of incessant trickery and desired to see him humbled. Tasha took this opportunity to interrogate Frazerblu extensively. From his lies, for the Prince of Deception speaks nothing but falsehood, Tasha demonstrated remarkable discernment in gleaning valuable secrets. This achievement alone would mark her as one of the greatest practitioners of demonology in history. For extracting truth from the Prince of Deception requires wisdom and insight beyond what most mortals can muster. When Zagig was unaware, Tasha continued these conversations, learning many secrets her mentor never intended her to know. Shortly thereafter, she absconded with many of Zagig's magical tomes, including the Tome of Six, an ancient book of demonic lore that she would later expand with her own knowledge and rename the Demonomicon of Igwilv. The transformation from Tasha to Igwilv occurred as the young witch traveled to the Yaddle Mountains, in the unclaimed wilderness near the Velverdiva River, to a twisted mountain now called Igwilv's Horn. This location was said to be the last resting place of the ancient mage Tsajkanth. There, using the lore and power she had stolen from Frazerblu and Zagig, she bound Tsajkanth to her service, using him as her slave for generations. The methods by which she accomplished this remain unclear, though it likely involved techniques she learned from studying both Frazerblu's imprisonment and the contents of the Tome of Six. Igwilv next appears in the historical records of Perrenland in 460 of the year in Common Year Reckoning. Using what she had learned and stolen from Zagig, Igwilv summoned and imprisoned the demon Lord Grast, the Dark Prince, master of multiple layers of the abyss. Grast is no minor fiend. He stands among the most powerful demon lords, a being of terrible beauty and equally terrible cruelty, whose influence extends across the abyss and into countless material worlds. That Igwilv could summon such an entity speaks to her power. That she could bind him demonstrates mastery bordering on the impossible. Igwilv next appears in the historical records of Perrenland in 460 of the year in Common Year Reckoning. Using what she had learned and stolen from Zagig, Igwilv summoned and imprisoned the demon Lord Grast, the Dark Prince, master of multiple layers of the abyss. Grast is no minor fiend. He stands among the most powerful demon lords, a being of terrible beauty and equally terrible cruelty, whose influence extends across the abyss and into countless material worlds. That Igwilv could summon such an entity speaks to her power. That she could bind him demonstrates mastery bordering on the impossible. The relationship that developed between Igwilv and Grast defies simple description. She managed to seduce the demon lord into helping her with her plans of conquest. They became lovers, though the nature of this relationship carries complexity that suggests it involved elements of genuine attraction alongside manipulation and coercion. Grast sired at least one child with Igwilv, the demigod Eos, who would go on to become a major power in Oerth in his own right. Based on what we know of their interactions, Igwilv and Grast came to embody a paradox. They loved nothing more than hating each other, and they hated nothing more than loving each other. This toxic, passionate, endlessly complicated bond would persist across centuries. Eventually, as inevitably happens with demon bindings, Grast found an opportunity to escape. There grew an abyssal rift beneath what became known as the Lost Caverns of Tsajcanth. When Igwilv attempted to use the bound essence of Tsajcanth to seal this rift, Tsajcanth attacked and injured her. Grast seized the opportunity, turning on his captor and breaking free after years of servitude. The Dark Prince's freedom marked a turning point in Igwilv's career, though not an end to their relationship, which would continue in various forms for centuries to come. From her studies, her interrogations, and her direct experience, Igwilv compiled the Demonomicon of Igwilv, a tome that stands as the definitive work on demonic lore. The Demonomicon contains detailed information on the political hierarchies of the Abyss, the true names and hidden weaknesses of countless demons, including numerous demon lords, spells specifically designed for summoning and binding fiendish entities, and philosophical treatises on the nature of chaos and evil. The book itself is an artifact of tremendous power, dangerous even to open, for merely reading certain passages can attract demonic attention or corrupt the reader's soul. Igwilv did not allow her setbacks to define her. Instead, she turned her attention to new pursuits, new realms of study. Through means that remain unclear, Igwilv succeeded in creating her own domain of delight within the Feywild, a feat that normally requires one to already be a powerful archfey, or to receive such a domain as a gift from existing Fey nobility. She named her domain Prismere, a realm of prismatic beauty where reality bent to her will and laws of nature held only as much sway as she permitted. At the heart of Prismere rose the Palace of Heart's Desire, a fantastical fairy tale castle of marble terraces and crystal spires, housing her vast collection of magical treasures, artifacts from across the plains, and the accumulated knowledge of her centuries of study. In Prismere, Igwilv took the name Zybelna, ruling as Archfey. Over time, the Feywild transformed her. This interpretation suggests changing her fundamental nature from mortal archmage to immortal Fey being. The Palace of Heart's Desire reflected its mistress's eclectic interests and vast experience. As Cybelna, Igwilf became a more benevolent ruler, her darkest emotions seemingly removed or suppressed through unknown means. She wielded the Vorpal greatsword Snickersnack and wore a robe of the Archmagi, along with an amulet of the plains. Most significantly, Igwilf possessed a personal cauldron, an artifact she had created, possibly with Baba Yaga's assistance, though this remains speculation. This cauldron held 2 different forms and many magical properties, including the power to permanently freeze time for everyone within a 1,000-foot radius. Igwilf's transformation into the Archfey Cybelna attracted the attention of her adoptive sisters, the 3 daughters of Baba Yaga, who formed the Hourglass Coven. Bavlorna Blightstraw, Skabatha Nightshade, and Endelyn Moongrave were hags, true daughters of the mother of all witches rather than adopted humans. The 3 sisters had been raised alongside Natasha and had grown to deeply resent their adopted sibling. They watched as the human girl surpassed them in power and prestige, carved out her own domain in the Feywild, and transformed into an Archfey, achieving immortality and status among the most powerful beings of that realm. Their jealousy grew until it consumed all other concerns. The 3 hags plotted betrayal with patience characteristic of Fey beings. A wizard named Kelek, who led a group called the League of Malevolence, somehow learned that the ruling Archfey Cybelna was in fact Igwilf, the adopted mortal daughter of Baba Yaga. Kelek hatched a plan to blackmail Cybelna, but he was betrayed by his own companion, the warlock Skyla, who secretly swore loyalty to Baba Yaga herself. The circumstances suggest that either Baba Yaga or her hag daughters manipulated events to create the perfect opportunity for their trap. When the League of Malevolence arrived at the Palace of Heart's Desire, the Hourglass Coven ensured that Kelek's rivals from a heroic band called Valor's Call were close behind. The 2 factions clashed inside the palace in a terrible and epic battle. While Cybelna was distracted by the chaos, the hags used her own cauldron, Igwilf's Cauldron, to freeze her and many others in temporal stasis. The Hourglass Coven then divided Prismeer among themselves, each claiming a portion of the domain. Bavlorna took hither the swamplands. Skabatha claimed thither the forests. Endelyn seized yon the mountains. The Hourglass Coven's triumph seemed complete, their hated sister neutralized, and her domain carved up for their enjoyment. Yet those who know Igwilf's history understand that she has faced defeat before and always returned stronger than ever. She has been imprisoned by demon lords and escaped. She has lost everything and rebuilt from nothing. the witch who walked among demons, who bound the Dark Prince himself, who transformed from mortal to archfey through sheer will and ability, is not so easily defeated. Somewhere in the frozen time of her palace, Cybele waits, and those with wisdom might wonder what will happen when that time unfreezes, and the Witch Queen emerges to reclaim what was stolen and punish those who dared betray her. Igwilf's influence extends far beyond her own direct actions. She authored multiple tomes beyond the Demonomicon, and the spells she invented entered common use among archmages across multiple worlds. Tash's hideous laughter, along with other spells bearing her name, represent only the most famous of her creations. Her relationships with demon lords, particularly Grazed, reshaped abyssal politics in ways still felt millennia later. The children she bore, including the demigod Eos, occupy positions of power across the planes. She also had a daughter named Drelsna, who became a vampire but was eventually destroyed. The Archmage Mordenkainen, himself one of the most powerful and famous wizards in all the multiverse, maintained correspondence and even friendship with Igwilf, despite their very different approaches to magic. Where Mordenkainen represents structured arcane study taken to its highest expression, careful balance, and neutrality in cosmic affairs, Igwilf embodies passionate engagement with forces most wizards would never dare approach. That these two could find common ground speaks to the depth and breadth of Igwilf's knowledge. For Mordenkainen does not suffer fools or tolerate the company of lesser minds. Compared to Igwilf's vast influence, other notable witches in D and D lore appear almost minor by comparison, though each made significant contributions to the tradition. The Wicklaron of Rashimen represent the most organized and politically powerful witch tradition, but they remain bound to a single nation and focused primarily on protecting that nation's interests. Individual Hathrans have achieved great personal power, but none have reshaped planar politics or authored works that changed the fundamental practice of magic itself on the scale that Igwilf achieved. Section 3. Covens and Sacred Circles, the Power of Three. Throughout the history of witchcraft, across every world and every plane, a fundamental truth has revealed itself again and again. While a solitary witch possesses considerable power, three witches working in harmony can achieve miracles that transcend the sum of their individual abilities. This principle, ancient as the first moonrise, forms the foundation of coven magic, a practice that transforms practitioners from isolated individuals into something far greater, a unified force capable of reshaping reality itself. The number 3 carries profound significance in magical theory, representing the stable foundation upon which greater workings can be built. A single point defines location. 2 points create a line. but 3 points establish a plane, a complete space within which infinite possibilities emerge. The rule of 3 is a planar concept rooted in the realization that many realms and layers in the multiverse were arranged in multiples of 3. Magic returns threefold upon its source. Many spells are cast by chanting a phrase thrice, and covens require at least a trio to function. Though the oldest hags claim to have invented this concept, or at the very least named it, their narcissistic and lying nature makes this claim questionable. There is also the possibility that some plane-traveling hags simply adopted the idea for themselves from observations of the multiverse's structure. The formation of a proper coven requires far more than simply gathering 3 practitioners in the same location. True coven magic demands compatibility at the deepest levels of magical practice and personal temperament. The witches who form a coven must complement each other, each bringing different strengths, different relationships with otherworldly patrons, different perspectives on the eternal mysteries. When 3 witches join together in formal coven bond, they weave their individual connections to spirits and entities into a single tapestry of power. The spirits who serve one witch find themselves in communion with spirits serving her coven mates, creating networks of otherworldly alliance that magnify the effectiveness of every working the coven attempts. Coven magic operates on principles distinct from both individual casting and ritual magic, as practiced by wizards or clerics. When a coven works magic together, the 3 witches do not simply add their power together arithmetically. Instead, based on what we understand from various traditions, they create resonance, harmonics that amplify effects exponentially. A healing working that might restore minor injuries when performed by a solitary witch could mend mortal wounds or even reverse death when enacted by a proper coven. A scrying that shows glimpses of nearby locations becomes, in coven hands, the ability to observe events occurring across continents or even across planes. Whether magic transforms from gentle encouragement of natural patterns into the power to summon hurricanes or banish storms that would otherwise devastate entire regions. The traditional structure of a 3-witch coven often reflects archetypal roles that appear across cultures with remarkable consistency. The maiden represents potential, new beginnings, the spring of life when all possibilities remain open. The mother embodies manifestation and nurturing power, the summer and autumn when potential becomes reality and bears fruit. The crone holds wisdom earned through countless cycles, the winter that contains the seeds of next spring's renewal, the keeper of knowledge spanning generations. These roles speak less to biological age than to archetypal functions within the magical working itself. This interpretation appears throughout folklore and magical traditions, though individual covens may organize themselves according to different principles entirely. However, not all witch traditions adhere strictly to the rule of three. In certain contexts, particularly among practitioners who maintain especially close relationships with celestial forces or specific types of spirits, covens of 13 members can achieve even greater power. The number 13 carries its own significance, appearing repeatedly in lunar calendars and natural cycles. Such larger covens, when properly organized with clear hierarchical structure and perfectly complementary abilities, can work magic on scales that rival the abilities of archmages who have spent lifetimes mastering structured arcane study. The Wicklaron of Rashemen represent perhaps the most successful integration of witch traditions into national identity and political structure that has ever occurred in the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons. In the cold northeastern reaches of Serene, where winters bite with savage ferocity and enemies press constantly at the borders, the witches known as Hathrins serve as spiritual leaders, judges, rulers, and warriors. The term Wicklaron translates as wise old women, while Hathrin means learned sister, and every female spellcaster in Rashemen, regardless of whether her magic flows from arcane study, divine connection, or traditional witch practices, belongs to this organization. The Wicklaron maintain absolute authority throughout Rashemen. A Hathrin's word is law, her commands obeyed without question or hesitation. To disobey a witch of Rashemen carries a death sentence, swiftly enacted and never questioned. This authority stems not from mere political power or military force, though the Wicklaron certainly command both, but from the essential role these witches play in their nation's survival. They maintain the pacts that keep the land fertile despite harsh climate. They commune with the spirits dwelling in deep forests and ancient places, ensuring those spirits remain peaceful, or at least neutral toward human settlement. They defend against external threats, both mundane and supernatural, standing as the primary bulwark against the constant machinations of red wizards from neighboring Thay. The sacred forest of Erlingwood serves as the primary sanctuary and gathering place for the Wicklaron. This ancient woodland, forbidden to all non-witches on pain of death, contains groves where the barriers between material world and spirit realm grow gossamer thin. Within Erlingwood, the Hathrins perform their most important rituals, brewing Rashemi firewine, a potent beverage infused with magical properties, binding hostile spirits that threaten the land, conducting initiations for new members, and maintaining vigilance over threats that common folk need never know exist. The Erlingwood represents not merely a forest, but a living temple, every tree a pillar, supporting the spiritual architecture that sustains Rashemi culture. The Wicklaron demonstrate how witch traditions, when given full societal support and integration, can shape an entire nation's character and ensure its survival against overwhelming odds. Rashomon faces constant pressure from Thay, a nation of powerful wizards organized into a brutal hierarchy and dedicated to conquest and domination. By conventional military assessment, Rashomon should have fallen to Thayan aggression centuries ago. Yet the land endures, protected not primarily by armies, though the Rashomon warriors are formidable in their own right, but by the Wicklaron, who maintain spiritual defenses that confound Thayan magic and ensure the land itself fights alongside its people. Yet even within such a successful tradition, corruption finds purchase. The Durthan represent a splinter faction of Rashomon witches who rejected the protective, balanced approach of their sisters. These corrupted practitioners focus their communion on spirits of destruction and vengeance, rather than balance and protection. They dream of conquest, of attacking Thay and forcing tribute from neighboring lands, of transforming Rashomon from a defensive nation into an aggressive empire. The Durthan welcome non-humans into their ranks, even hags, breaking with traditional Wicklaron practices that maintain strict standards for membership. Their very existence serves as reminder that the same abilities used for protection can be turned toward domination. That power without wisdom and ethical foundation inevitably leads toward corruption. Far across the multiverse, in the continent of Corvair on the world of Eberron, another manifestation of Coven power reshaped the political landscape of an entire region. The daughters of Sorakel, 3 hag sisters born to the legendary witch Sorakel, united the monstrous races of Western Corvair to create the nation of Drome. Soracatra, Soramenia, and Soraterza each bring unique abilities to their triumvirate, forming a coven whose combined power makes them among the most formidable individuals in all of Corvair. Soracatra, called the mouth of the 3 sisters, is a green hag of extraordinary cunning, who serves as the mastermind and primary spokesperson for the triumvirate. Green hags possess natural abilities related to illusion and deception, and Soracatra has honed these talents to perfection over her long existence. She handles negotiations with other nations, manages the complex politics of ruling a land filled with creatures traditionally viewed as monsters, and crafts the long-term strategies that guide Drome's development. When ambassadors from the 5 nations treat with Drome, they face Soracatra across the negotiating table, and those who mistake her for a simple monster inevitably find themselves outmaneuvered by an intellect that has spent centuries studying the weaknesses of so-called civilized peoples. Soramenia, sometimes called the Fist of the Sisters, is an Annie's hag of terrible strength and savage disposition. Annie's hags stand larger and more physically powerful than their green or night hag cousins. And Soramenia exemplifies this terrible might. Where Soracatra handles diplomacy and strategy, Soramenia enforces the triumvirate's will through force when necessary. She leads Drome's military forces, commands warbands of gnolls and ogres and worse, and demonstrates to any who might challenge the daughters that their rule rests not merely on cunning, but on the ability to destroy any who raise arms against them. The monsters of Drome respect strength above all else, and Soramenia provides strength in abundance. Soraterza, a dusk hag unique to Eberron, possesses precognitive abilities so powerful that she has become a de facto leader of the triumvirate despite speaking rarely, and then only in cryptic pronouncements. Dusk hags see possible futures with clarity that surpasses even the most skilled diviners using traditional methods. Soraterza perceives the branching paths of probability, watching events that might come to pass and guiding her sisters toward outcomes that serve their purposes. Her visions led the daughters to unite the monsters of Drome in the first place, foreseeing opportunities that would arise from creating a nation of creatures, others dismissed as irredeemable savages. When Soraterza speaks, her sisters listen, for her prophecies have proven accurate with disturbing consistency. Some speculate that the daughters maintain power through Catra's cunning and charisma, Minya's intimidation, and Teresa's prescience, working in perfect concert. The daughters of Sorakel demonstrate coven magic applied to nation building and political transformation. They took scattered tribes of creatures that hated each other almost as much as they hated the civilized races, and forged them into a functional nation with borders, trade agreements, and representation in international councils. This achievement required not merely magical power, but vision, patience, and willingness to invest centuries in gradual transformation. The fact that they are hags rather than human witches matters less than the principles they demonstrate. 3 practitioners working in perfect coordination, each bringing complementary abilities, can achieve goals that would be impossible for any individual regardless of personal power. The Hourglass Coven, formed by the 3 daughters of Baba Yaga, represents another powerful triumvirate of hag sisters. Bavlorna Blightstraw, Skabatha Nightshade, and Endelyn Moongrave are collectively known to embody aspects of time itself. Bavlorna represents the present, Skabatha embodies the past, and Endelyn personifies the future. Each hag possesses unique powers related to her temporal aspect. As is often the case with hag covens, the 3 sisters despise each other and constantly conspire in pairs against the 3rd sister, creating an eternal cycle where Bavlorna and Endelyn plot against Skabatha, Endelyn and Skabatha scheme against Bavlorna, and Skabatha and Bavlorna conspire to bedevil Endelyn. Skabatha Nightshade is the oldest member of the Hourglass Coven, better known as Granny Nightshade. She offers her assistance to those who are haunted by regret, though her aid always comes at terrible cost. Skabatha possesses the ability to magically shrink herself to tiny size, between 4 and 8 inches tall, or return to her normal dimensions. This power allows her to infiltrate locations and observe without being noticed. The distinction between witch covens and hag covens requires careful examination. For while both involve 3 practitioners working together, and both achieve enhanced magical effects through combination, the underlying mechanics and philosophies differ significantly. A witch coven consists of practitioners who learned their craft, who formed relationships with spirits and entities through patient effort, who maintain their power through ongoing cultivation of those relationships. When 3 witches form a coven, they remain fundamentally human, or whatever their base species happens to be, their enhanced abilities flowing from harmony and resonance among their individual powers. A hag coven, by contrast, consists of creatures who are inherently magical. Hags are born with abilities that require no study or spiritual communion. When 3 hags form a coven, they gain access to additional spell-like abilities and enhanced versions of their natural powers. While all 3 members of a hag coven are within 30 feet of one another, they can each cast certain spells. But these benefits stem from the interaction of their inherent natures, rather than from cultivated relationships with external entities. A hag coven can work magic that individual hags cannot, but these abilities remain fundamentally different in character from the magic. A witch coven achieves through spirit communion. The Code of Covens, an ancient set of principles and protocols that governs how covens form and operate, appears across cultures with remarkable consistency. Though specific details vary by tradition and region, certain core principles remain constant. Based on what we understand from witch lore, coven membership requires unanimous consent. All existing members must approve any new addition, and the candidate herself must willingly join. Forced or coerced coven bonds invariably fail, producing disharmony that destroys the very resonance that makes coven magic effective. The sacred circles within which covens perform their most important workings carry significance beyond mere geographic location. A coven's circle represents the physical manifestation of the spiritual bonds connecting the members. These circles are typically established in locations where natural power flows strongly. Clearings in ancient forests, mountaintop plateaus, islands in sacred lakes, or caves deep underground. The witches prepare the circle through ritual cleansing, marking boundaries with stones or planted herbs, consecrating the space through offerings to the spirits they serve. Once established, a coven circle becomes a permanent threshold, a place where the barriers between material and spiritual realms thin, and communication with otherworldly entities flows more easily. Some covens maintain circles in multiple locations, allowing them to work magic across wide territories. Others focus all their efforts on a single primary circle, developing that site over years or decades until it becomes a place of tremendous power. The most ancient coven circles, maintained continuously for centuries, can become so saturated with magical energy that even non-practitioners can sense the power concentrated there. Animals avoid such places or behave strangely when forced to enter. Plants grow in unusual patterns. The very air feels thick, charged, pregnant with possibility. Section 4. Arts of the craft, spirits, hexes, and forbidden knowledge. The true measure of a witch lies not in raw power, but in the depth and breadth of her relationships with the unseen world. While wizards collect spells like merchants collect coins, and sorcerers channel the magic burning in their blood, witches cultivate bonds that span years or lifetimes, building networks of obligation, favor, and mutual benefit that connect them to entities dwelling in realms beyond mortal perception. The arts of witchcraft, the actual practices that define this ancient tradition, emerge from these carefully maintained relationships. Every hex uttered, every potion brewed, every familiar summoned represents the culmination of patient negotiation and respectful communion with forces that existed before civilizations rose and will endure long after they fall. Spirit binding forms the absolute foundation of witch practice, the bedrock upon which all other abilities rest. This art bears no resemblance to the summoning practiced by some wizards, who call entities across planar boundaries and trap them in binding circles. Such methods produce resentful servants who seek every opportunity for escape or revenge. A witch approaches spirit binding from entirely different principles, recognizing that the most powerful and enduring magical relationships must be consensual, built on foundations of mutual respect and reciprocal benefit. The process of binding a spirit, based on what we understand from various witch traditions, begins not with magical compulsion, but with careful observation and research. A witch seeking to bind a forest spirit must first spend extensive time in the forest itself, learning its rhythms and patterns, understanding which areas hold the greatest concentration of natural power, identifying which specific entity might be most amenable to approach. She observes what offerings might be appropriate, what times and seasons carry the most significance, what protocols must be followed to show proper respect. Only after this preparatory period, which might last months or even years, does she attempt actual contact. The initial approach follows etiquette that varies depending on the type of spirit being contacted. Nature spirits typically prefer offerings of natural substances. Ancestral spirits respond to offerings related to their mortal lives. Elemental spirits desire things related to their essential nature. Fey entities prove most capricious in their preferences, sometimes demanding elaborate performances or riddles solved, other times accepting simple tokens offered with genuine respect. This diversity of preferences requires witches to possess extensive knowledge of spirit types and their individual characteristics. When a spirit responds positively to initial contact, negotiations begin. The witch explains what aid she seeks, what abilities she hopes to access through the bond being formed. The spirit, in turn, makes its own requirements clear. Some spirits demand regular offerings maintained over the duration of the bond. Others require specific services performed. The terms must be clear, mutually understood, and acceptable to both parties. A bond formed under false pretenses or misunderstanding will fail, often catastrophically, when the deception or confusion becomes apparent. Once terms are agreed upon, the actual binding ritual seals the relationship. In some traditions, this involves the use of a special ritual dagger called an athame. The witch and spirit exchange tokens of commitment, physical or metaphysical objects that symbolize their connection. These tokens create a sympathetic link, allowing communication across any distance, enabling the witch to call upon her bound spirit's power, and the spirit to contact the witch when circumstances require. The strongest bindings involve blood, creating profound bonds that grant tremendous power, but also create deep vulnerability. For each party gains certain influence over the other that persists until the bond is formally dissolved. A witch who maintains multiple spirit bindings simultaneously must manage a complex web of relationships, ensuring that no spirit feels neglected or betrayed, that obligations to one entity do not conflict with duties owed to another. This constant balancing act requires exceptional wisdom, excellent memory, and unwavering commitment to honoring agreements. The most accomplished practitioners maintain bonds with numerous spirits simultaneously, creating networks of power that rival anything available through structured arcane study. The familiar bond represents a specific type of spirit binding that deserves particular attention. A familiar is not merely a pet or animal companion. It is a spirit that takes animal form to serve as constant companion, advisor, and partner to the witch who binds it. The familiar bond creates a connection deeper and more intimate than almost any other magical relationship. In D&D mechanics, the familiar is described as a spirit that takes an animal form, and witch and familiar share thoughts and emotions, perceive through each other's senses when the witch chooses, and protect one another with dedication. Familiars appear in many forms, most commonly as cats, ravens, owls, toads, or snakes, though any creature might serve depending on the specific traditions involved and the nature of the spirit being bound. The animal form is not the familiar's true nature, but rather a physical manifestation it adopts for purposes of interaction with the material world. In truth, familiars are spirits of various types: celestial beings, fey entities, fiends, or other creatures from beyond the material plane. The form they adopt often reflects their essential nature or the type of magic they help their witch practice. The binding of a familiar follows protocols even more stringent than standard spirit binding. In some traditions, the ritual involves adding a drop of your own blood to a cauldron to bind the familiar to you, then sealing creatures together in the cauldron and lighting a fire underneath using charcoal, herbs, incense, and fat. The process takes time, and once complete, you and your familiar are linked telepathically, allowing telepathic communication so long as you are on the same plane of existence. When you close your eyes, you can choose to see what your familiar sees. You can always sense what direction your familiar is from you, even if you cannot see it. So long as you are on the same plane of existence, and the familiar is not protected by anti-divination magic. In certain witch traditions, practitioners can bind additional spirits to their familiar, granting it enhanced abilities. The spirit bound to your familiar does not count against your total number of bound spirits. Your familiar benefits from the spirit's passive effect, and you do, as well as long as your familiar is within 100 feet of you and on the same plane of existence. If you permanently dismiss your familiar or change its form, the bound spirit is dismissed. If the familiar dies, the spirit that was bound to your familiar is released. Hexes and curses represent the aspect of witchcraft that most commonly appears in fearful whispers and cautionary tales. These workings, magic designed to bring harm or misfortune to specific targets, demonstrate witch power turned toward vengeance or punishment. A hex is typically an incantation derived from insidious magic, while a curse carries greater power and permanence, potentially affecting targets for their entire lives, or even extending to descendants across multiple generations. Witches learn hexes as part of their magical development. These powerful incantations grant them abilities or allow them to weaken foes. Hexes are considered zero-level spells for the purposes of features and spells that interact with magic, such as counterspell or dispel magic. All hexes cease while in the area of an anti-magic field or similar effect. Some hexes can curse creatures, preventing healing, forcing them to share harmful effects with the witch, or marking them with scars that persist through disguises and shape-changing. The ethics of hexing and cursing have been debated within various traditions since time immemorial. Some practitioners refuse entirely to work harmful magic, maintaining that such workings inevitably corrupt the caster, regardless of how justified the cause might seem. Others view hexes and curses as legitimate tools when used appropriately. Most traditions fall somewhere between these extremes, establishing guidelines that permit harmful magic only under specific circumstances, when protecting self or community from direct threat, when punishing those who have violated sacred laws, or when maintaining necessary balance. The creation of grimoires represents another essential aspect of preserving accumulated knowledge in forms that can survive the practitioner's eventual death and pass wisdom to future generations. A witch's grimoire differs fundamentally from a wizard's spellbook, where the wizard's tome contains precise formulae for specific spells. A witch's grimoire, based on what we can infer from various traditions, records relationships, negotiations, and personal experiences. It documents which spirits respond to which offerings, what terms have proven acceptable in past bargains, warnings about entities best avoided, and detailed accounts of workings performed, including both successes and failures. The most famous grimoire in all the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons is undoubtedly the Demonomicon of Igwilv, that legendary tome compiled by the Witch Queen herself during her centuries of demonic research. The Demonomicon contains detailed information on demon lords and their hierarchies, spells for summoning and binding demons, and knowledge of the abyss. The book itself qualifies as an artifact of tremendous power, dangerous even to open. It has 8 charges that regain daily at dawn. While holding it, you can cast Tash's hideous laughter as an action, or expend charges to cast Magic Circle, Magic Jar, Planar Ally, Planar Binding, Plane Shift to the Abyss only, or Summon Fiend. The Demonomicon also contains spells that Igwilv developed specifically for her demonic research. These include Dolar, a spell that forces obedience from hostile creatures from another plane with no saving throw. Lover's Call, which allows summoning an aspect of Grazd for an hour. Igwilv's Lightning Cage, which creates a Forsa cage with bars of lightning. And Igwilv's Timeless Sleep, which permanently puts the victim into temporal stasis. The first 5 pages of the Demonomicon are blank and can be used to trap souls. When holding the Demonomicon, evil spellcasters cast such spells as if they were 5 levels higher. Witch groves and sacred sanctuaries serve as the physical anchors for much witch practice. Locations where the barriers between material and spiritual realms grow permeable enough to allow easy commerce between worlds. These sites do not arise spontaneously, but must be carefully cultivated over years or decades. A witch seeking to establish a grove begins by identifying a location where natural power already flows strongly. A clearing where ley lines intersect, a spring emerging from deep underground, a hilltop that catches the first and last light of each day, or an ancient tree whose roots reach deep into the earth. Once identified, the location must be consecrated through ritual that introduces the witch to the spirits dwelling there and establishes her right to work magic in their territory. This initial consecration involves offerings, formal requests for permission, and demonstrations of respect for the site's inherent sanctity. Assuming the spirits grant approval, the witch begins the long process of development. She plants specific herbs and flowers that attract beneficial spirits. She places standing stones or carved markers that define boundaries and focus magical energy. She performs regular rituals that saturate the location with power, gradually transforming it from merely a natural site into a true threshold where the normal rules of reality relax their grip. A fully developed witch's grove becomes a place of wonder and power. The very air feels thick and charged, pregnant with possibility. Time, this could suggest, flows strangely within well-established groves, with hours passing in minutes or minutes stretching into subjective hours, depending on the will of the witch who maintains the space. Visitors might sense invisible presences or experience vivid impressions, even during brief stays. Whether magic, divination, and healing represent additional witch abilities that demonstrate the power of maintained spirit relationships. Weather workings require cooperation from air and water spirits, entities whose natural tendencies must be redirected toward specific purposes. A witch cannot simply command the weather to change through force of will. Based on what we understand from various traditions, she must negotiate with the spirits who embody atmospheric forces, offering them reasons why the change serves their interests, or providing compensation valuable enough to motivate their cooperation. Divination, as practiced by witches, differs from structured divination magic, where a wizard might cast a scrying spell using precise components. A witch achieves similar results by asking spirits to show her what they see. Spirits existing beyond linear time can perceive possible futures with clarity unavailable to mortal minds. A witch who has cultivated strong bonds with prophetic spirits can access this perception, seeing glimpses of what might come to pass. The healing arts represent magic turned toward preservation and restoration. Witch healing operates through communion with spirits associated with life, growth, and renewal. These spirits, when properly petitioned, can accelerate natural healing processes, purge toxins and diseases, or even reverse injuries that would otherwise prove mortal. The witch serves as intermediary, her body becoming a channel through which healing energy flows from spirit realm to material patient. Section 5. Keepers of secrets, modern legacy, and hidden influence. The role of witch as guardian, as keeper of knowledge too dangerous for common dissemination, represents perhaps one of the most crucial functions these practitioners can serve across the countless worlds of the multiverse. While kings build armies and wizards construct towers filled with arcane implements, some witches maintain vigilance over thresholds that must not be crossed, seals that must not be broken, and truths that must remain hidden from those who lack the wisdom to wield them responsibly. Based on what we can infer from various witch traditions, certain dedicated practitioners emerged during the dark centuries when persecution drove witch practices underground, when accumulated wisdom faced extinction, and ancient pacts risked abandonment. Those who took up such responsibilities accepted burdens that would break lesser spirits, dedicating their entire existence to preserving what must be preserved and guarding what must be guarded. Such dedicated practitioners differ from ordinary witches in both scope of responsibility and depth of sacrifice demanded. Where a typical witch maintains relationships with spirits for personal benefit or community protection, these guardians shoulder obligations that transcend individual or even generational concerns. They become custodians of knowledge spanning millennia, maintainers of wards and seals placed by practitioners long dead, guardians of gateways that connect realms best kept separate. This responsibility can consume their lives entirely, leaving little room for normal human concerns or conventional relationships. Such a witch might spend decades in profound isolation, performing the same protective rituals every dawn and dusk without fail, knowing that a single lapse could unleash catastrophe upon a world whose inhabitants will never know how close they came to destruction. The knowledge that such practitioners preserve takes many forms. Some guard grimoires containing spells too dangerous for general practice, workings that could reshape reality itself if employed without proper understanding and safeguards. Others maintain oral traditions, memorizing vast bodies of lore that were deliberately never written down, because committing such information to physical form would create vulnerability to theft or accidental discovery. Still others, this interpretation suggests, might serve as living anchors for bindings placed upon entities that must never walk free. Should such a practitioner die without properly transferring her responsibilities to a trained successor, the consequences could prove catastrophic. The process of selecting and training a successor represents one of the most critical tasks any such guardian performs. The candidate must possess not merely magical talent, but specific temperament, infinite patience, unwavering dedication, ability to endure profound isolation without losing sanity, and wisdom to understand why certain knowledge must remain secret even when revealing it might bring personal benefit or solve immediate problems. Many dedicated practitioners spend years or even decades observing potential successors before making their choice, watching how candidates handle power, whether they can keep secrets when pressure mounts, and if they demonstrate the long-term thinking necessary for maintaining vigilance across a lifetime. In the contemporary settings of Dungeons and Dragons, which traditions persist despite centuries of persecution, and the rise of organized magical institutions that view traditional practices with suspicion or contempt, the Wicklaron of Rashimen continue their sacred duties, maintaining the pacts that keep their land fertile and defending against Thayan aggression. The daughters of Sorakel rule Drome, demonstrating that organized practitioners wielding coven power can reshape political realities. Individual practitioners throughout Faerun, Eberron, and countless other worlds maintain groves, commune with spirits, and pass their knowledge to carefully selected students, preserving traditions that predate current civilizations and will likely survive their eventual fall. The modern era has brought new challenges alongside persistent old ones. The rise of magical academies and wizards' guilds creates institutional structures that claim exclusive legitimacy in magical practice, marginalizing traditions that operate outside their frameworks. Organized religions grow increasingly powerful, often declaring that communion with spirits constitutes trafficking with demons, and demanding that all magical power flow through approved divine channels. Urbanization spreads, reducing the wild places where spirit power flows most strongly, and making it harder for witches to establish the groves and sanctuaries their practice traditionally requires. Yet adaptable traditions find ways to persist, and witchcraft has always excelled at adaptation. Urban practitioners have emerged in cities and large towns. Witches who maintain the essential principles of traditional witchcraft while adapting methods to suit changed circumstances. Where their rural predecessors communed with forest spirits and maintained sacred groves, urban witches, based on contemporary interpretations of the craft, might establish relationships with the spirits dwelling in city parks, in ancient trees that somehow survived development, in rivers and streams forced into underground channels but never truly tamed. They create sanctuaries in attics and cellars, in rooftop gardens, in forgotten corners of graveyards. They form covens that meet in seemingly ordinary homes, their neighbors unaware that profound magical workings occur just beyond thin walls. The influence of witch traditions on major historical events across D and D settings often goes unrecognized because witches typically work through indirect means rather than dramatic public displays. A witch might prevent a war not through battlefield magic, but by healing a ruler's advisor of a disease that was driving him toward aggressive policies, or by ensuring that crucial diplomatic messages arrive at exactly the right moment, or by subtly influencing whether to make military campaigns impractical during critical windows. She might preserve a kingdom not through protective wards, but by maintaining the spiritual health of the land itself, ensuring good harvests that keep the population content and loyal. Her victories leave no monuments, earn no songs from bards, appear in no historical chronicles. Yet the absence of catastrophe, the persistence of stability, the maintenance of balance, these achievements matter profoundly even when they pass unnoticed. Igwilv's influence on magical scholarship extends far beyond her own direct achievements. The Demonomicon established standards for comprehensive documentation of specific magical subjects that influenced how practitioners across all traditions approach knowledge preservation. Her willingness to share certain information through published works, while carefully protecting her deepest secrets, demonstrated how knowledge could be disseminated to advance collective understanding without surrendering personal advantage. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, another tome associated with her various identities, contains wisdom applicable to practitioners of every magical tradition, representing synthesis and integration rather than narrow focus on witchcraft alone. The spells Igwilv invented bear witness to her genius and her willingness to share at least some of her discoveries. Her documented spells include Dolor, Ensnarement, Exaction, Imbrue, Implore, Lover's Call, Minimus Containment, Tasha's Caustic Brew, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Tasha's Mind Whip, Tasha's Otherworldly Guise and Torment. Tasha's Hideous Laughter was used circa the late 15th century Dale reckoning in Waterdeep as a security measure against burglars, demonstrating how her innovations entered practical application across the realms. The relationship between witches and other magical traditions continues evolving as circumstances change. Some wizards have begun recognizing that the spirit-based approach to magic offers capabilities unavailable through purely arcane study, and they seek to integrate such methods into their own practice. Some clerics acknowledge that communion with nature spirits complements rather than contradicts divine worship, particularly among those serving deities associated with nature, moon, or magic itself. Some warlocks realize that patient cultivation of multiple relationships might prove more sustainable than dependence on a single patron who could withdraw support or make demands that force impossible choices. Cross-pollination of techniques and philosophies enriches all traditions involved, though purists on every side resist such integration and insist on maintaining strict boundaries. The future of witch traditions appears simultaneously promising and precarious. The knowledge persists, encoded in grimoires hidden away in secret libraries, memorized by dedicated guardians who pass it to carefully trained successors, and embedded in cultural practices that continue even when their magical significance goes unrecognized by practitioners. The spirits remain, eternal and patient, waiting for those who remember proper protocols of approach. The sacred places endure, though many lie abandoned or forgotten, their power dormant, but not extinguished. Should circumstances shift to become more favorable, should persecution ease or attitudes toward traditional magic soften, the traditions could experience renaissance, emerging from shadow into broader practice. Yet threats persist as well. Every guardian who dies without successfully transferring her responsibilities represents knowledge potentially lost forever, and vigilance potentially abandoned with unknowable consequences. Every sacred grove destroyed for development or despoiled through pollution represents a threshold closed, a gateway between worlds sealed perhaps permanently. Every generation that fails to train successors adequately represents a weakening of chains of transmission stretching back millennia. The traditions survive through active effort, not passive persistence, and complacency invites extinction. You have walked now through ages and across worlds, learning of those who maintain vigil in the spaces between material and spiritual realms. You have met Igwilv, the witch queen who bound demon lords and ascended to become archfey. You have encountered Baba Yaga, the mother of all witches, whose dancing hut carries her across plains, and whose adopted daughter reshaped magical practice itself. You have observed the Wicklaron defending Rashimen through spirit communion, and the daughters of Sorakel building nations from scattered tribes. You have learned how covens multiply individual power through harmony and resonance, how spirit binding creates relationships that endure across lifetimes, how hexes demonstrate power turned toward various purposes, and how dedicated guardians sacrifice normal existence to protect knowledge and maintain seals. The witches of Dungeons and Dragons, these practitioners who walk between worlds and maintain relationships with entities beyond mortal comprehension, represent magic in its most primal and personal form. They remind us that power flows not merely from study or bloodline or divine favor, but from relationship, from patient cultivation of connections, from respect offered to forces that dwarf individual existence. They demonstrate that the greatest achievements often leave no monuments, that the most important victories involve catastrophes prevented rather than enemies defeated, that true wisdom sometimes demands hiding knowledge rather than revealing it. In your own adventures, whether as player or storyteller, you might encounter these practitioners. Perhaps you will seek a witch's aid in lifting a curse or locating something lost. Perhaps you will venture into a sacred grove where reality grows fluid and spirits walk freely among material creatures. Perhaps you will discover a grimoire containing knowledge dangerous and profound, forcing you to decide whether such information should be preserved, destroyed, or delivered into hands better equipped to protect it. Perhaps you will meet a guardian maintaining lonely vigil over some threshold or seal, and you will glimpse the magnitude of sacrifice that such dedication demands. When these moments come, remember what you have learned here. Remember that witches are not simple villains or convenient sources of magical services, but complex practitioners maintaining traditions older than kingdoms, preserving knowledge that predates current pantheons, and shouldering responsibilities that most would refuse if they truly understood the cost. The traditions persist, adapted and evolving, flowing like water around obstacles, finding new forms while maintaining essential character. And somewhere, perhaps in a tower overlooking landscapes both beautiful and terrible, perhaps in a grove where ancient trees whisper secrets to those who listen, perhaps in the frozen moment where Zybilna waits for time to resume its flow, the greatest among them plan and scheme and prepare for futures measured in centuries rather than years. If you found value in this journey through witch lore, if these tales of ancient power and patient cultivation of otherworldly relationships resonated with your own fascination for the deep magic underlying reality, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows continued exploration of these hidden corners of D&D lore, these secret histories and traditions that enrich the multiverse we share. Until next time, may your own relationships, whether mundane or magical, bring wisdom and power born of mutual respect and patient cultivation. Safe travels through realms both seen and unseen.